Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Guard Major and this is Sea Trials. Sea Trials is your submissions with my commentary and tactical overlays. And today we have a submission from Partago 1000 who's playing the Gneisenau, the German Tier 6 Tech Tree battleship. And this is a game of Capture the Base on the Atlantic and it's a Tier 5 and 6 game. On the MA team we have a Shashio, a Graf Spey, a Nuremberg, a Pensacola, Shores, and a Nelson in a division with a Colorado. So two things to really take away from there. They've only got the one destroyer. It is an Sashio. However, it does have a torpedo reload booster, so bear that in mind if we come across there. Second of all, their two battleships, their only two battleships, are in a division. So therefore, they're probably going to work together. And also, they're going to be dictated by the speed of the slowest ship, which would be the Colorado. Otherwise, Nelson's going to be pushing off on his own. Now, at the start of the game, a quick look at the tactical map overlay. So usually I'd like to say left flank play left, right flank play right flank, centre maybe split themselves between the two. I'd probably recommend that the Scharnhorst goes right. The reason being is there isn't a battleship on that flank. And you also note I've hashed out the two corners. The reason why I've done that is I usually say avoid these two corners because it's quite easy to enter these corners and get locked in. Now, part of the guy's just been spotted, and highlighted on the map is the possible locations of the enemy Shashio. So either she's over here on the left flank, or she's going to be in the centre. So it's going to be interesting to see where she pops up. Now on the friendly team, there's an Akatsuki, a Bedoini, an Aoba, Legazianet, a Danis, York in a division with a Cheshire and a Scharnhorst, and a pilot guy is Gneisenau. Now the friendly DD has pushed way up northeast, and being that there's nothing spotted up there, we know that that area of the map is completely empty, scoring himself his first citadel of the game very nicely, getting himself 20,000 damage. Enemy destroyer has now been spotted in the centre, so this means we can breathe a little bit more easily, especially in the Gneisenau, when there's only one DD per side. Once you know the general vicinity of them, it's very easy to work around them. Getting a volley out on the Graf Spey, cheeky. So just playing around the throttle, taking his time, getting himself into position. There's the enemy Nelson. We also see on the minimap the enemy Colorado. So it looks like both the Nelson and the Colorado are heading over to the western flank. Now, as always, down in the description will be the command build and the ship modules that Pilot Guy has taken for this sea trials, I guess you could say. Just getting ourselves into a nice position. Now, it's worth mentioning that his Gneisenau is fully upgraded, and he's decided to choose aiming systems, steering gears, and target acquisition modules. For his commander, he has the Hipper, not the Azerlane one, the Franz von Hipper, level 14, legendary 2. And he's taken Flammable Cannonier, Gyrating Drillbits, Marksmanship, and Emergency Specialist and Will to Rebuild. So quite interesting, because he's gone for improved range, improved shell grouping, improved AP shell damage, improved turret traverse, improved accuracy, and a couple of other things, but all at the cost of rudder shift, the chance of actually catching fire, and his ship speed. Getting another citadel on the shores very nicely. So he's playing the left flank, he's sailed down, he's looked at his options, seen that the enemy's coming in, and being that the two battleships on the enemy team are working together, it makes it very easy for Pilot Guy to actually angle his ship against them, simply because they're always going to be in very close proximity to each other, and therefore the enemy's battleships aren't actually going to form an effective crossfire. Second of all, both their battleships are actually heading over to one side of the map, so it's very easy to work around them, unfortunately. And when you look at the minimap, you can kind of see that the enemy team has kind of sacrificed a lot of their map control. They're very much focused in a tiny area. And the worst part is with them pushing themselves up against this side of the map, they're really restricting themselves as to whether they just retreat back along the edge of the map or push along the edge of the map or even push into the enemy, or the friendly team, I guess you could say. Whereas Pilot Guy, him and his colleagues in this current vicinity, they can push them, they can fall back, they got plenty of escape routes. getting some nasty citadels on that Colorado, who just seems to continue to sail broadside on. But then that's simply because Partagas team has managed to make a very effective crossfire. That Colorado is trying to angle himself against the Scharnhorst. But he's having to expose himself to the Gneisenau. If that Colorado actually switched his turrets to his starboard side and pointed his bow more towards Pilot Guy, he might be able to try and angle against both of them. But the problem is he's run out of map, really. As you may have noticed, the friendly Akatsuki got taken out by the enemy Pensacola. But apart from that Pensacola, which is out to the eastern flank, most of the enemy team's all here. Enemy torpedoes coming in, so usual good trick to avoid torpedoes in the battleship is turn into them and slow it down as quickly as possible. And that way they should sail past nice and easily like that, especially when you're coming to an edge of an island, because they're not going to be able to chuck torpedoes in such a way that they can predict that you're going to slow down and turn in. So obviously a trick for a DD is when you fire torpedoes, yes, probably always assume that they're going to continue on their current course, but also just cover off that slow down and turn in. Polishing off the shores, and as per just previously highlighted the map, you can now see that the enemy's completely sacrificed all map control. They're now just pinned in this corner. Now this is the thing, Pilot Guy is spotted here, and that Nelson should know that he's going to be coming around this edge of the corner. So it's quite strange what the Nelson does. He just continues to sail broadside on here, especially when the enemy, well, the friendly Scharnhorst is now gone. There's no reason for the Nelson to continue on his current course, and he should either probably start angling in, start backing it up, really. Unfortunately, he stays broadside on, and the Pilot Guy gives him a damn good smacking, and takes 30,000 off of his HP. Now for a Nelson, a Gneisenau, a Scharnhorst, a Drillbits, or an Odin are probably the worst things that you want to see, because you just know they're going to close in and they're going to torpedo you at point blank range. Spoiler alert. And she's also now pointed her nose in. Now this is a little unfortunate. I mean, the nose of the Nelson is pretty much paper thin, and you can punch right through it and get into the citadel. But unfortunately, the dispersion there just wasn't favourable for Pilot Guy, and it just it went either side and hit the armoured Bautum easily. However, she's staying nose in, and as he closes in, aims right under those turrets and gets himself another citadel, which is absolutely beautiful. Now, amusingly, spoiler alert, the Nelson's loaded high explosives, so he doesn't really do that much to Gneisenau point blank range, and that's the end of the game. So here we are at the end screen, and he's managed to get himself 141,000 damage with 29 hits on target. Only sunk one ship, managed to get himself 7 citadels and only 1 fire. So quite amusing considering it's a German battleship. Also only 23 secondary hits. Interesting. Obviously coming in top of his team, it just seems to be one of those games where the enemy just completely sacrificed all map control very early on, and simply it was then just a downward spiral as they slowly got picked off one by one, as they were unable to form an effective crossfire. They were unable to lock down certain areas of the map. There's just that one point where the enemy's all sailing around in open water, and Pilot Guy's team are all nicely in cover. And then Pilot Guy's team's got options as to where they can go. The enemy team have got barely any options. They can either run away and show their broadside, or they can charge and show their broadside, or they can push in and probably get mutilated. So just poor map control from the enemy team. This is why always try to have some diversity in your squad. By the division of the enemy team being the 2 battleships, they want to buddy up. By buddying up, they form no crossfire. They can't effectively control much of the map. I mean, if maybe they played a bit more central, maybe they could have a bit more map control. But really, if you're going to division up, I always try to advise take a different ship class to each other. Try and think of what's going to complement each other. So with a Nelson, maybe you want to try and back that up with a DD or a light cruiser, so something else like that. With a Colorado, you probably might want to take maybe a heavier cruiser or something like that. But yeah, just try and mix it up. Just if you see your mates playing one ship, try and pick a different class. It always just makes your division that much more effective because you're bringing different tools to the table. If you just all bring the same tool, it's very hard to apply that effectively sometimes. Although, you know, your experiences may differ. I mean, I have seen some good games where people just bring 3 Jean bars into a game and just slam it up the middle. But so, general rule of thumb is a bit of diversity doesn't go, can't really go too badly, I guess you could say. Also, looking at the economy tab, with a common credit booster and a premium count, he's managed to make himself nearly 200,000 credits, which is quite nice, as it's a tier 6 tech tree ship. Obviously, the ship service cost is about 110, which is quite standard, All in all, it was actually quite an enjoyable submission, actually, and I look forward to using some of the other submissions that Pilot Guy has sent in. I'd like to say thank you very much for sending them in. It's much appreciated that for even considering to send them in. I know that obviously putting yourself up for sea trials, it might not be to everyone's taste. If it isn't for your taste, then just when you send in the submission, just let me know. But as Pilot Guy says, he really loves the Gneisenau and he has a glutton for punishment. I'm sure that's why he and a couple of others always request it every live stream. Well, if you have enjoyed that Sea Trials, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy this content, feel free to subscribe. And if you are already a subscriber, let's say thank you very much for your comments, contribution, and support. We're closing on 1,000 subscribers, and once we get there, it'd be interesting to see what I can do as a YouTube community creator, I guess you could say. Obviously, that unlocks a couple of things, but one thing I can always guarantee you is you won't see any adverts or sponsorships unless Lamb's Navy Rum would like to sponsor the channel, then I'll quite happily take it, but otherwise you shouldn't see anything. And that's why there's Patreon. If you want to support the channel, then you can always support the channel on Patreon. Also down in the description is the email address for the channel if you want to send in your own game captures, a link to a video to show you how to do your game captures, and also the command build and the modules taken by Pilot Guy during this submission. Until next time, I'm the Gareth Major, and back to the port.